Hey everybody, welcome to how Kanban meets the USDS Agile Playbook. Welcome to everybody. This is Interagency briefing today. And with us today we have our guest star. Our star guy is Joey Spooner, the guy in the middle. He's the technical lead who's joining us from Florida. But also with us we have Randy Williams. Say hey, Randy.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
That's right. Say hey, Joey, from Sunshine Land.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I just came back from Fort Lauderdale, so it was great. I enjoyed it. I'm Dave Loam, your briefing host, and we want to welcome everybody that's coming in today. If we missed your agency, apologize for that. We try to grab as many as we can to make sure that we welcome everyone. But welcome here today. We're glad that you decided to join us. And real quick, this event is not affiliated or endorsed by any agency and is provided to you, the audience, for informational purposes only. And participation in this briefing is voluntary, and any engagement by government personnel is not an indication or endorsement of or commitment to purchase from any vendor. Whew, got that out. All right, very good. A couple little quick things about the briefing. If you have any questions, open up the panel, and you can enter those, and we'll do our best to get that back to you. If you joined us and you'd like to dialogue, you can raise your hand, and we can create that dialogue so we can go back and forth. And if you dialed in on the phone, very, very important, use your audio pin. It's pound, your audio pin number, and then pound again so we can unmute you. And if you have any questions throughout this, we'll be collecting these as well at govsupport@tritechenterprise.com, and we will do our best to get those answered for you. One final thing, if you like the way that Joey looks down in Florida, you can make him bigger by dragging that little panel separator, and you can make it large. And with that, that's all that I have to get us started, and we have a lot to do today, so I want to make sure we're on track. Why are you guys here? We'll be doing this a couple of times throughout this. You want to learn more about the executive orders that have come out last year. I want to learn more about the USDS Playbook, if you're not already familiar with that. I want to learn about Kanban management. You can select as many as you like. Or you want to learn about the DOL case study that we're going to be doing today, and you can go ahead and answer those, and we will absolutely make sure we get the right information to you as a result. And with that, we're going to leave you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and thank you very much. Awesome. Just real quick, everybody. All right. We want to learn about the initiatives. Gotcha. And the playbook, even up. And then about Kanban management. Glad that you're all here because that's actually what we're going to be talking about, right, fellas?
That's right.
That's right.
Excellent. So my screen is moving, right? You're seeing everything move. All right, good. Just making sure. So today we already did the welcome, but we'll give you a quick overview of TriTech and what they do from the industry perspective. We'll talk about some of the initiatives that are coming down on everybody's head and the USDS Playbook, get to that DOL case study that folks are interested in, and we'll get to some Q&A from you as well, and procurement and funding options, and then we'll close you guys out. So, Randy, you established TriTech in 2002. Why? What motivated you to do such a thing?
Well, actually, Dave, thanks. Good morning. I did that for several reasons. I worked for a contractor, SRA, and I actually left them when they went public, started my own firm. I felt that working under them, I learned a lot. But with TriTech, I had the opportunity to teach others better and save them money and get right down to the detailed solution that they wanted. So over the last 16 years, TriTech has been doing integration work, as well as now we're in Agile methodology and some security work. But most of all, we're a CMM level 3 company now. We're still on the SBA still an SBA. We're a HubZone company. We have a JSA schedule. And every single customer that we supported since 2002 is still on board with us. So that proves that we are actually doing what the customer needs. So your success is our priority.
That is excellent. And congratulations on that. That is an accomplishment that very few people can even think about, right? So,
that's correct.
And we appreciate you guys being here and being able to share this information, because there are multiple things that are coming down on folks in the federal government, whether it's procurement or program side. So we'll get into some of those things. And we do know that one of them is are the presidential memorandums that we see, right? So we talk, hiring freeze, no news, right? That's still in place in most agencies. Then we have the reorg from March 13th of last year, and then April 12th, M1722, getting to the place where we're really looking to manage the government more streamlined and ultimately doing more with less, which gets us to those initiatives. And this is what applies very well to the Agile methodology as well as what U.S. Digital Services has been doing with any of the advancements that they're putting forth. But Agile is a big part of that, so we'll get to that. But maximizing employee performance, nothing new here since that. And again, doing more with less. That's what we're up against. So as far as the USDS playbook is concerned, though, let's find out how many people really know about this. If this is just coming from someplace, and that this is one of your first exposures to the USDS playbook. We'll be talking about this pretty much throughout the whole presentation, right, fellas?
That's right.
Yep.
So with that, and we have most are not familiar with the USDS playbook, which is really interesting. So let's you have another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and great. Thank you very much. That was a great poll. Look at that, guys. Look at
Wow.
that. So, we will
We're going to learn about it today.
So awesome. So we're really glad that you're here, and we'll get right to it. So what is USDS? U.S. Digital Services was established in 2014. I actually met with Steve Van Rokel. He was the original U.S. CIO who brought this program forward. Originally, they just wanted to have 10 people to help come in and fix some of the biggest issues that were out there with immigration management, VA benefits, and healthcare.gov. If you remember, that was a huge burning issue, and that needed to be corrected. And they wanted to hire 10 people. And they were pulling from industry talent, and they still do. By the way, it's the Googles, the Facebooks, and folks like that, really highly skilled folks that are on these teams, which are USDS digital teams. And they come in, SWAT teams, target teams, whatever you want to call these folks, come in to address critical agency IT issues, and they follow the USDS playbook. They created it and followed it. We'll get you a link to that as well. But it's designed to accelerate the development of existing or current projects to get them through so that you're actually using them, right? We'll talk about that too, won't we, Joey?
That's right. That's right.
And also turn around projects that aren't running the way that they're supposed to be. And now USDS and Tony Scott, a friend of mine, I talked with him just the other day. That blew up to over 200 plus USDS members. So they wanted only 10. They got to over 200 plus. And now Margie Graves is running USDS. And I got to spend several hours with her down in Austin a couple of years ago. So all of them highly qualified folks, very good at what they do. And you have access to them from your agency as well. So let's talk about what they're talking about with USDS and what they use, which is Agile. Tell us about Agile and how this mindset got running, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So Agile kind of started back in manufacturing way back in 1980. So let's call that a long time ago for the fun of it. But it did take place, yeah, and mostly in manufacturing facilities. It was the idea of incrementally delivering work. It actually moved into project management around 2001 with the start of the Agile Manifesto, and many software development managers were starting to use these iterative and incremental approaches to managing work because they found that would create a lot of flexibility for them. It's been picked up a lot in the late past 10 years, 15 years now, and it's actually in the past 4 to 5 years, maybe 4, it's been moving into non-IT areas: marketing, advertising, human resources, legal services. I'm at a conference this week, actually, and a lot of people are talking about non-IT Agile. What does this mean? It means getting feedback a little faster. It means you're getting your information and making decisions in a faster way and not letting delay get the better of you.
Excellent. And there's different flavors, right? Because there's SAFe, there's Scrum, all these terms that you'll wind up hearing with Agile. Tell us what they are and what we're going to concentrate on today.
Yeah, sure. So these are just a handful of flavors here. If you Google Agile and you look up Wikipedia, you'll see this gigantic laundry list of amazing different ways to do Agile. There is no one right way to do it. It's more about what fits for you. But we have things like SAFe that you see in the government today, Scrum, which is a very popular one. You hear the word sprint being used a lot, and also DevOps, which actually takes in the automation components and really makes things move a lot smoother. For us, we've been really having good luck and good fortune with the Kanban method. But remember, there's no one right way to do that. So if someone says this is the way you need to do it, they probably don't understand your situation. And your situation is really what's fit for purpose. So we tend to look at what your fitness criteria are for your service or for your organization or your program. And then we build back against that with your service delivery. And that's kind of what I think the Kanban method does.
So, and it is working, right? Because to your point, you mentioned it, moving quickly, being able to get things going a lot faster, buy-in throughout the organization and such, right?
That's right. That's right. So typically it allows you to move in smaller bits and get feedback faster, which is really important because sometimes, a lot of the time, you're kind of guessing what you think is the right thing that you're going to do. Whether that's technology or non-technology, you're taking a guess and you want to get some feedback soon. And the idea that we focus on is making sure that you're doing the right thing consistently and then getting that feedback a little sooner. So the idea is that you want to learn what works and doesn't work. Now, one of the key things that's come out of the Agile movement, which I'm really happy about, is the idea of not grinding yourself to, into dust, basically, by working long hours. So we try to do this under conditions that are what I refer to as humane, right? 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day at most, that's kind of the high end of it, but really about 8 hours a day of good focused work and then coming back again. Something that we've been teaching people is that not every day is a 8 or a 10. So some days you roll a 10, some days you roll a 5, some days you roll a 3, and that's the randomness in life. And we have to make sure we put that into account with everything else that takes place.
That's a really interesting point because we're not always operating 100%.
That's right. We're not machines. And in the classic project management model, it was more like you're 100% utilized or you're not. And now we're looking at it more like, how can you help contribute to the delivery of value?
And that's a fantastic outlook. Awesome. So we have actually a case study with Department of Labor, with Public Affairs, and this particular program that you were involved in is $30 million portfolio and there were some issues. So tell us about this, kind of set the stage, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you guys went about getting to where you went and what the results were.
Sure, yeah. So when I got there, the team was trying to use Scrum, but they were having a little bit of a hard time, and it was just the development team. So the QA team and the security team really didn't follow this Scrum approach. So what we decided to do was to just visualize their work, tie it together, and then have them try to use Scrum as a whole team. They were able to successfully do that for about 13 sprints and then decided, you know what, we'd like to try something a little different. We're tired of doing this 3-week, run to the finish line. We want to try something a little smoother. So they actually decided to go with the Kanban method, and that actually allowed them to monitor, measure, and remove a lot of delay in their process. And ultimately what happened was we removed the time frame from delivering software from 55 days to 11 days. So for those of those Agile folks that are on the line right now, take a user story, it would take 55 days. Now it took 11 days to deliver a user story. For some of those in the industry, they might say, well, that could be a little faster, and I agree with them. But remember, we're using old technology. We don't have everything we need to do it in place. So for example, test-driven development was something they wanted to do, tried to do, couldn't get it done. So it was a very low maturity team that was growing into higher maturity. And that was something we really enjoyed about the method. We also used portfolio Kanban. That was something that I didn't pick up. The manager around me picked up. He said, I like this visualization thing. I want to visualize the entire portfolio to the team and also have discussions around risk management of that portfolio. Ultimately, we ended up training more of the federal staff on Kanban and how to use it. And now it's been doing great. And in fact, we used it a while ago for the governance and IT security team, which had no clue how to do Agile at all. And they hired one additional person and ultimately improved their performance by 90%. That was something like 55 days for them to deliver something like a audit report or an entry or a security evaluation on software. That went down to 5 days in about 4.5 months, maybe 6 months at most. So we've had some really good luck there with the Department of Labor in improving their performance without causing any more cost. And keep in mind too, Dave, one thing that happens a lot, frameworks that you see in the Agile methodologies out there, they're typically recipes you want to apply. And a lot of people will apply them very strictly as if you've got to do it or you're not doing it at all. With the Kanban method, It is, we start with what you do now, and we slowly pick apart the places where there are obvious wins for everybody, and no one feels this dramatic shift and change. They feel like you're just slowly improving, and there's a lot of good morale that comes out of that, positive morale, and a momentum in the right direction for improving everybody, skill level and the service.
I love the quick win analogy as well, because it gets you buy-in with folks. When you see the quick wins, it makes you trust the process, if you will. So let's talk about some of the problems that you ran into, or what was happening. You mentioned a little bit about that already, but talk about what was happening in Department of Labor.
Yeah, so day one, we had no visualization of the work. So the federal manager I was working with said, hey, can you help me see into the work? Because I don't know what these guys are doing around me. I sit on the same floor, I see them typing away at their computers, and I get a status report at the end of the week if I'm lucky. Sometimes it takes until the next week to get that status report. So his feedback loop was 5 to 7 business days. We took that and made it day of. So each day around 10 o'clock, we would get together around this visualization, and we would actually take care of visualizing. Sorry about that. This is a shared office space I'm in right now, so my apologies. So we were trying to visualize what was going on during the day, the work that was being brought to delivery. So these were the user stories. We also looked at how long it would take for work to complete once the team starts on the story. So we actually were able to start tracking the time range in which work would happen. So we learned what it would take to really get something done. Once we utilized our system, which is really a good thing that we do in Kanban, we could actually start to understand what a feature or project would take in terms of the number of stories. There's a forecasting method we use in the Kanban method, which has been really useful. And then he wanted to know, the ultimate question typically that managers have, how do I tell my manager above me that I've got a ton of stuff on my plate and you're piling a dump truck, worth of stuff on my plate, and I appreciate that. I want to help you get it all done, but there's this pile of stuff you want me to do, and here's about how much I can get done. Here's my pipeline for getting it done. So we actually were able to visualize that and respond to that in a way that was quantified. So both sides had a clear picture of, okay, this is the truth. This is our capability as a team, and here's our demand. And then lastly, one of the things that he wanted to have sort of resolved was QA was 300 feet away or less from the developers, but they rarely talked together at the same time. Putting them together in the same visualization allowed them to have conversations every day about what was in progress and what needed to be resolved. Imagine that. You start communicating and things kind of work out.
Right.
Yeah. Better. As long as you're not throwing stuff while you're communicating. So the solution is that you mentioned this already. You applied the Kanban method progressively. So it wasn't like, bam, you got to do all this all at one time, but you picked the low-hanging fruit or did the quick wins, right? That's right. That's right. If anyone's listening and you want to try something that is Kanban related, my first belief is that you follow that very beginning principle of the method, which is start with what you do now. Don't change anything. Don't change any roles. Just visualize it on a whiteboard. You could use technology to do this as well. But when you do that, that allows you to have a conversation that's between you and the team about something that matters to both of you. And it really allows a progressive conversation to take place over time. For us, we started with just simple visualization. How do you do it? What are you doing? And then we slowly grew into, okay, how well is it really working? What are the metrics behind that? And we're talking very simple metrics. So if you think you got to calculate and compute a lot of information, it's really simple. Track when you started it, track when you finished it, and you're going to get a ton of information out of that way of tracking your metrics. And the guy who actually walked in was a specialist in metrics that I refer to often, a guy named Daniel Vicanti, actually. He's on site today with me, and he's really good at crunching those numbers, and he's taught me a lot as well. And this has been something that we used at the Department of Labor to get those forecasts done. So we actually were able to determine, are we stable in our process after doing this Kanban method? And then how do we actually start to forecast out what the future looks like? And let's talk about the results and just reiterate what you said earlier, that 80% improvement in performance is staggering. Yeah, and keep in mind, folks, this is not a light switch experience. It is something where you have to learn. You have to figure out where the bugs are in your process, and you have to figure out what do you need to do to improve that. So that was over a 2-year period that we figured out how to bring that down from 55 days to 11 days, while at the same time improving the skills of the team. That was something that happened in the background. At the same time, we also had this awareness of how to be balanced, how to do our work in a balanced way, not overcommit to too many things, not undercommit
to too few things. That allowed us to be more predictable over time. And so we could answer the question of when will it be done really reliably. In fact, one time I remember I was in a meeting with this federal manager I was working with, and he was passionate about this project with his peers. And he said, guys, we're going to try and make this happen in 30 days for you. And I did a rough estimate of how many stories might be in this project. I took a pretty good educated guess. And I calculated it using a forecasting tool that we use for all of our predictability work. And it said 90 days. And he said, no, I'm passionate about it. We're all passionate about it. We're going to get this done in 30 days. 90 days later, about 90 days later, we released that software. And I turned my laptop around with that analysis. And I said, remember when I said 90 days? It was about 2 or 3 days off from that actual predictability. So that was really good and really positive for him in terms of confidence in the way we were doing things with this approach.
That's great. And because it's being real about things too. It's not just saying, hey, let's make this unrealistic expectation. He had a full belief that he'd be able to do that because of the buy-in that he had. He just wasn't managing the throughput, sounds like to me, or understanding the throughput in order to get to that goal. And and even though that was a negative, you turn that into a positive form, which is that's an art in and of itself, by the way, Joey.
Thanks, Dave.
So great recap there. We'll take some questions on the DOL case study in just a minute. I see some questions about it, so we'll get to that in just a minute. But the other thing we want to do is we want to tie this into what the USDS Playbook says about bringing these projects to fruition. And one of those, if you look at bullet point number 4, build the service using agile and iterative practices. A lot of this is all wrapped and woven into the USDS Playbook from the beginning, right? So let's talk about, in retrospect, how the DOL success, or at least the process, and where they are in it. So understand what people need. How does it apply?
Yeah, so in that case, it took us about a year to recognize this. We knew we needed to do it, but we didn't have the right organization to do it initially. So as we got into doing some of our work, we had the federal manager act as a UAT specialist. He would actually come back through and validate a lot of the work that we did, kind of like what you do in the Scrum framework. But the problem was we felt like we were missing the mark with him. He kept saying, guys, you're not quite there. You got to go back and rework this. And that feedback that happened over the course of maybe 2 weeks to 5 days, depending on what the work was, we realized we needed to create something that would allow us to break that work down. So we created what's called an upstream Kanban, which allows us to really break down those requirements. Now, unfortunately, because of where we were within the Department of Labor, we couldn't go straight to a citizen or a customer, but we would pick out random people and ask them, to test something out. So that allowed us to get a better sense of suitability. Now, that isn't complete needs analysis for the geeks out there. It's not 100%, but that started them down that road, which is a new door that they opened up there. So Dave, the addressing the whole experience from start to finish, we did something along the lines of focusing on core priorities. So we didn't have a chance to get into all the experience aspects, but we were starting to develop our way there. And as far as making it simple and intuitive, using that Kanban system, we had a better feedback loop, like I said, on the requirements. We knew we had to build that upstream system suddenly and do that work. And one of the things we learned along the way was that, the skill level of our team isn't superb. They're good, but they're not great. They're not the superstars that you have in the industry. They're starting out, they're working their way up the ladder. So we realized we had to break down those requirements into small pieces, and that made it easier for them to digest. We also worked on building the service using the agile and iterative processes. So in this case, you guys remember we did Scrum to begin with, then we moved into Kanban. And Kanban really helped us to understand the risk management around what we were doing. It allowed us to understand if something was, we needed to do it today, or if we needed to do it maybe by a certain date, or maybe in like 2 weeks or so. So we actually had to support a lot of different kinds of requests from internal agencies, requests from other departments at times, and requests from the White House, the executive branch. So we wanted to make sure that we supported all those initiatives in a very mindful way without overcommitting ourselves and getting in a bad place, without painting ourselves into a corner, really. In terms of structuring budgets and contracts, I think they were on their way when we left with DOL. We actually had a very good experience with them where they understood how to deliver things and manage the performance on a delivery perspective. That means for the folks here on the call, that means measuring how much you deliver per quarter or making your objectives per quarter. That's really what this was about ultimately, making sure we were predictable and making that consistent over time, if not improving it. Assigning one leader and holding that person accountable, I was very fortunate. The team at DOL had this really great manager who was focused on getting this through. He had such good leadership skills, and he was really focused on making sure we had our conversations that were tough and bringing ourselves to an accountable point of view where we actually all work together. In terms of experienced teams, like I said, we had experienced teams, but we didn't have the best in the industry, and that's for, I think, a lot of people. So we started with where we were. We did a very good skills assessment, and we understood how to cross-train each other and slowly build our skills up as a good team. We didn't have the fortune of a good modern technology stack. I don't want to say this is Department of Labor like other citizen-based departments, but this was one of those things where they couldn't afford every great thing. They were able to afford some of these things. So we were able to improve performance while working with the existing technology we had in place. In terms of deploying in a flexible hosting environment, we were on our way there, but we didn't have all the things that we were looking for. We used something called ByteGrid. Some of those in the federal government might know about it. It worked well for our needs, but we couldn't do the really great automated things that come out of that. And that leads us to automated testing and deployments. We had some of this. And like I said, we tried to do TDD, which is test-driven development, but we couldn't completely execute it. That was our current reality. That was our current capability. And I think that's a tough conversation to have, but it really illustrates the picture for everyone in the room. This is what we have right now, and this is how much demand we have. How do we balance that out is what we talk about frequently. And then managing security and privacy through the reusable processes. Now that's where we had this in great form, in great shape. We knew exactly what we needed to do to make sure that we were auditable, that we were in compliance with regulatory requirements within the federal government, and we had a way to improve it slowly and surely. On top of that, we actually realized that this was complex stuff. You know, some of these things are very agile and temporary, and we want to give it a try and see if it sticks. What stuck became what we called a service guidebook. We created a little reference guidebook for people to say, okay, how do you do this? What are the steps we need to do to go through to make sure we're compliant? And that became a good reference book for people who came on board, as well as people who were there for a while and needed to brush up on what was going on as far as the process is concerned. We used a lot of data to drive our decisions. Now, we would have loved to have done that for the product, for the customers. We didn't have that technology in place. That was the reality of our demand that we were trying to support. So ultimately, we worked on looking at our metrics every 2 weeks of our performance as a team. We tried to get more lean in what we were doing. We tried to remove anything that wasn't really adding value at the time. So we really focused on making sure that the customers had something that would come back quickly. Our customers in our case were the government agencies and other departments like the White House. It's worth mentioning Kanban Method visualizes all of this. So the metrics are there, they're visualized, you see them very clearly. You can see if you're going in a good direction, way ahead of schedule, or if you need to correct and get back into process in a good way where you're actually more predictable over time. And then defaulting to open. One of our key projects was actually delivering an open source project called Quarry, and that was meeting the goal of OMB 1313, which was the open data initiative by the Obama administration. And we used the Kanban method to realize this project and deliver it on time while improving our performance. And that's probably worth saying one more time. We delivered the project on time, and at the same time, we were improving our performance. That to me is kind of bananas crazy. Imagine saying we're going to make our date, and at the same time, we're also going to improve how we're working. I don't know too many teams that would take that on. And we didn't say that outright. It just happened naturally because we were using that method to slowly, incrementally improve the way we worked.
And I think to your point, that's really what you want it to turn out, is that not everybody is like striving for this perfect outcome. It is understanding where you are, moving from where you are into a better managed environment, and a great job, by the way, all 13 points covered. And and I think it was great that not all of them are 100% either. It's not like it all works out 100% all the time, but the idea is that, and that's what makes the playbook so instrumental, in the process itself, is being able to say, hey, are we meeting those objectives, and being able to map that out. And you mentioned OMB 1313, right?
Yes.
Well, this also applies, being able to follow the playbook as well as implement Agile in your organization applies to M1722 as well. And it's essentially doing more with less. That's what the requirement is becoming. There's no super load of of contracting officers coming on board. So everybody's being required to do more with less, and with the retirement of folks and people leaving, it's tough to hire people, right? So just in a replacement mode is very difficult. So again, meets the M1720 1722 as well. So now we'll get to some questions. So you can open your panel on the right-hand side. You can raise your hand. You can type those questions in, or you can email them to us at govsupport@tritechenterprise.com. Down the bottom, you can see that. So, all right, let me get my spectacles on, and I'll take a look at what people are asking us. Hang on one second, and I will get to it. You mentioned this, but this came in earlier. Was Kanban methodology used in DOL's project? And the answer is yes, right?
Yeah, actually it was. And in fact, this is a very common pattern I see right now in the federal government, where they have to utilize the PMP to report on the metrics of the project back up to OMB or other organizations. But within the PMP, they get to choose what they want to use for the delivery method. And they used Kanban for the delivery method after about a year of using Scrum. The team got tired of using Scrum because they got tired of running those sprints and just kind of rushing. They felt like it was pressuring them too much. Instead, they switched from the push kind of approach of Scrum to a pull approach of the Kanban method, where they pulled in new work when they had capacity to do that.
And what does PMP stand for, just so for everybody?
Yeah, that's the Project Management Professional designation, or
Okay.
PMI is the organization, Project Management Institute.
Gotcha. And the next question is, how can we get buy-in throughout the organization? You mentioned it before that sometimes folks are trying to get buy-in of their superiors, that they have a workload limitation, and then otherwise management's trying to get buy-in from everybody throughout to get there. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways to do that. The one that I think is the best in terms of culture for the organization is find the place that's not doing good at all. People have tried to get it to work. They've tried to get this little division to work, for example, or this team to work. They can't seem to get them to function well. If you apply the Kanban method there, that could be a very good case study internally for your organization to see exactly how it can work. And sometimes you'll see results showing up as early as 6 weeks, and you'll see improvements within a 6-month time frame very easily. So it's possible to do this. I usually tell people, give me your ugliest, give me your worst, give me your bad, situation.
Be careful.
Right. I love those because those are really fun problems to turn around. And I find that the Kanban method illustrates very quickly how that can happen. How the other higher performing teams will like it, but they may not see the immediate benefits that you would see with a poor performing team. But then again, if you're trying to say, how do I get buy-in across the organization? Sometimes, and this is something that I'm glad we're here talking about it today, I think not enough people are talking about it throughout the US government. I think they're doing it quietly and they're having some success, but there should be a broader conversation around that, because typically buy-in happens by looking at your peers and they say, holy cow, that wasn't too hard to do, and that was something that worked well, and it didn't cause a dramatic shift and change with the organization. It was slow, it was evolutionary. So I think in some ways, if you can have teams come together and talk about it for an hour or two or a day, that can really change perspectives. We have ways of doing that through simulations here at TriTech.
Awesome. Reed asked a question, what are some primary differences between Kanban and Scrum? Great question.
Yeah, good question. So Scrum typically works on the idea that you're wanting to set up a time frame in which you execute your work. And the idea is that your team's supposed to estimate how much they can do and then try to deliver that with some level of accuracy. We talked about user stories before. Think of these as tasks. If you haven't done anything in Agile before, these are the tasks that you're trying to achieve within a given 2 to 3 week period. And the idea is the team is committing early on to doing that work. And in the most ideal circumstances, they're saying, once we commit to doing this work, we can't allow anything else to come into our process. We can't allow new work to come in. So they start to do that work, and the idea is they burn down that entire backlog of work within a 2 or 3 week period. Some teams can do it within a couple of days. It just depends on their way of working. Whereas the Kanban method, it's more about pulling in work and organizing it, making sure you understand the demand for what it really is. You have conversations on the front end, making sure that what's being asked of you is appropriately evaluated for the true need, the risk involved. Wow. On the delivery end, we make sure that we pull in work according to risk. So we have things that sometimes happen day of. Got to get it fixed. It's a bug, or it's something else in terms of the world, like a last minute high priority request to update something. Whereas other cases we'll have things that are due on a certain date. Sometimes we have things that are due in 2 or 4 weeks. And we pull that work in and we manage our workload that way. So we never really stopped working, but we have points in time in which we reflect on our work. The idea between Scrum and Kanban probably is this idea of commitment in a batch model versus Kanban, which is commitment at the item level or the individual level. We're continuously flowing work through a Kanban system, which allows us to really reflect on our efficiency with reality. Whereas in a Scrum situation, it's great for building products. It's really great for doing things in a very intensely focused way, but that means that nothing else can break that focus. We tend to work on balancing focus with reality in a Kanban system.
So, and like you said in the beginning, there is no right or wrong. There's just
right,
and that's what I think that makes it comfortable for a lot of people to adopt. If you come across saying, "Hey, you're wrong. This is wrong. You've been doing it wrong, and you've been running the wrong way," and instead you adopt where you are. Don't change anything. Just apply a couple of these tools. And one of those tools, Tim is asking, use of an estimation tool was stated earlier on. Would you mind stating what that tool is? I've seen many homegrown tools, but curious if there's something else out there. So lay it on out.
Yeah, I will. The gentleman who walked in here and crashed this webinar about, 30 minutes ago, I can't wait to get him for this. But he is the guy who created something called Actionable Agile Analytics. He's written a book on it that talks about how to look at it either from a Scrum or from a Kanban perspective. He's the one who actually makes it very clear to you how you can do a start and end date and get a lot of information out of that. And he also has a tool which is web-based that will do all the metrics and analysis for you. And it'll actually tell you the stability of your process. So oftentimes we do something in the Kanban method called a service delivery review. And within that context of about a 45, maybe 30-minute period, we look at different aspects of the system using that tool. And one thing that tool has is a dashboard. And that dashboard, it actually really indicates clearly to us if we're balanced and stable, or if we need to calibrate something. It really allows for a good, quick, what I call family photo of your team. It allows you to see what's changed in the past 2 weeks and really help you figure out where you need to go next. Some teams, like the company that I'm sitting in right now today here in Fort Lauderdale, they refresh their data every 15 minutes using this tool. So they look at things, they don't look at it critically every 15 minutes, but they will come by maybe every 45 minutes, maybe every 2 hours, and see what's happened since the next story was delivered. This really gives a good forecast for the future for them.
That's great. Great.
There he is. Hey, Dan. Say hello, Dan.
There he is again. Is that him again?
That's him again. He had to grab his bag. Sorry about that.
Almost on cue, man. If he'd have popped over that door when you were talking about him, that'd have been even better. But that's great, and you can see it in action. All right, so and we will take any more questions that you want to provide us. That's great, and we'll answer those as we go. Let's talk about a pilot program, because this is one of the questions that have come out of talking with so many folks that would like to try it to see if there's a way for the methodology to work without dumping in an entire new program and make it very difficult. So this is 5 to 6 weeks, you said, is how it works. And so it falls under the simplified acquisition threshold. So that's a good thing too. They can check a couple of boxes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But talk about what the objective is of the pilot, and then how that may roll into something that would be more broad.
Yeah. So in this case, what we're looking at is about maybe 5 to 6 weeks of time spent training people on what the method is. It doesn't take long to train them on it. And also mapping out what they currently do and making sure they can visualize that very easily. And then from there, helping them to quickly identify some quick wins. It doesn't take long. Like I said, about 5 to 6 weeks of tracking information is enough to give you a lot to understand how to improve things and get some immediate benefits. And the idea here is eventually you want to do more with less. In some cases, you've got to do it. In some cases, it's actually helpful to do it. Why is that the case? It allows you to focus and get better quality. You have better intent. You know, everyone wants to meet the spirit of their mission. This kind of allows you a little room to do that and talk about it in a way that's effective with your management. So they don't feel like you're not doing work. They understand what you're trying to do. It creates this amazing dialogue. There have been many times in the past 15 years of my career where I've had conflict situations with 2 employees. And they keep arguing about, the hair color or the color of their shirt, and they're like, you don't do this right, you don't do this right. And what I've learned as a technique is to put an object in between them. And this visualization of this Kanban method really allows that conversation to happen between a manager and another employee, or between two managers. So that happens probably within about 3 hours, honestly, of the pilot. We visualize it very quickly. It doesn't take long to put that together. And then from there, understand where you currently are within your metrics. We use a lot of quick ways to do the metrics, but sometimes it can take a little bit longer to figure out where you've been. So that really tells you if the method is working for you. And you'll see some quick feedback on that within about 2 to 3 weeks. You'll see if you're actually going in the right direction or continuing to have some of the same problems, right, that caused you to go in the wrong direction. So we can really help you align to that right place where you can become more predictable and get better quality out of your services.
Very good. And quick wins, low-hanging fruit, cherry picking, whatever you want to call it. It gets the buy-in and everybody motivated. That's awesome. So real quick, a lot of folks are up against an Agile requirement coming up. So let's see what's happening. I expect an Agile requirement immediately. We know there's some folks out there because we asked that question coming in. Q3 2018, because we're almost there, folks, believe it or not, for fiscal year 2018 anyway. And Q4 2018, 2019, or not sure. Just let us know what you have cooking, and we'll make sure that we get you what you need. And we'll give you another 5, 4, you can do it. 3, you can do it. 2, 1, and boom. So this is what everybody's saying. There's a lot of need out there. So thanks for responding to that. So we're all in this together. And one of the things we want to do is help you avoid the gotchas. So first things first, stop repeating what doesn't work. That sounds awfully easy, right? Stop doing what doesn't work. How hard is that one, Joey?
It's actually really hard. It's hard to change habits. Let me tell you, that is the hardest thing in the world to do. But some of the Kanban method will actually start to illustrate that for you, and you go, oh my goodness, I did it again. I did it again.
Did it again. Did the same thing again. Bang my head against the wall again and again. All right, and follow the USDS playbook. It really does work, doesn't it, fellas?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does. It actually does help you focus more intently on providing good value and good service to your customers, whether that's internal to your agency or external to your agency as the public citizens go.
And you can leverage the Agile pilot, the Kanban pilot, for quick wins. That's a really good way to, one, understand if it works, how it would work in your organization. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and you can find out quickly and take advantage of the quick wins. And find vendors that can manage and deliver on multiple flavors of Agile. How important is that, Mr. Williams?
Oh, that is very important. It's just very important. It works on top of all methodologies out there, and you can get the quick decisions and the buy-ins. And once you see it works for the first time, you would then want to have it more and more in your organization, and that's what it's all about.
Yep.
More for less.
More for less.
That's the key.
So verify the past performance. You can also establish and use BPAs. If you're not familiar with BPAs or establishing those, you can hit me offline, and I will connect you with some of the contracting folks that do. Faster access to talent, industry knowledge, and experience and expertise that you can get yourself quickly with using BPAs. Real quick, a couple of bullet points for you on the procurement methodologies for TriTech. You mentioned this before, Randy, and you mentioned about small disadvantaged business, your hub zone. If you need some other connectivity, you run through partnerships with 8A, Service Disabled, Woman-Owned, and you can certainly run it through GSA. So reach out to us. If you have a project, you can reach out to TriTech, and they can help you with that particular project. So with that, I'm going to leave us with one last question, and then we'll get out of here. So you could use some help with meeting M1722 initiatives, a specific project, more information about TriTech, or more information on the USDS Playbook, or something else, please contact me, and we will make sure that it gets submitted to the right person. So let's, and this will be the final poll, and then we'll make sure we get you out of here because we're running a couple of minutes over. Great questions, and that was one of the reasons we ran over, which was awesome. And we'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, and That's it. All right, good deal. We'll get that for everybody. Just so you know, you will get a follow-up for the presentation. We just had somebody ask that question, as a matter of fact. Will the presentation be made available? Yes, you will get a copy of the presentation, as well as a Q&A and any other Q&As that come in. The supporting documents and links to all of the things that we talked about today. Remind me about that OMB 1313, right? We'll make sure we get that in there. TriTech capabilities and procurement options and additional documentation that you asked for. And with that, we're going to say thank you for joining us. Randy, let's let him out of here in just a minute, but last comments.
Okay, last comment is it works for all industries. It works in federal, commercial, and state. It's about innovation, research, and making your technology work no matter where it is. And that's what we stand by. We want your environment to do the same.
Love it. Joey, final comments from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm jealous.
Yes. Enjoy the cold weather in Maryland. I'm kidding. Honestly, the one thing I've learned with the Kanban method is people say, I have this, I have that. Will it do anything else for me? The answer is typically yes. It illustrates and highlights things that you don't realize. So if you're already using something like Scrum or Six Sigma or another kind of approach like feature-driven development or disciplined Agile approaches like that, then yeah, it can actually highlight a few more things that will improve how you're doing them. The depth of that, the detail of that is something we'd be happy to show you. But typically we can do it a little better, a little faster, and definitely a lot cheaper.
Awesome. Well, we thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for the great insight in reviewing the Department of Labor. Always great to get real life examples of success stories, and the fact that every single one of your clients are still with you says a lot. So thank you for that. And thank you for everybody for joining us. We're going to let you go, and we'll see you next GovBrief. And we really appreciate you guys, what you do, and joining us today. Thanks much.